This is a little bit different, Camilla. We're actually in your car. We did record this earlier this morning. So we are driving in Rickmansworth. I got the train out this morning from London. Camilla, it's a beautiful day actually, isn't it? Got it nice and sunny. Why are we here?
So, when the Telegraph launched its potholes campaign, I think quite a few Londoners, yourself included, slightly sceptical. Is this really an issue? I think you were saying in your internal monologue. And
that's not fair, but we'll go on. Yes, go on.
This is the town in which I do a school run every single day. What's interesting about this kind of little pocket of Hertfordshire is that there are 5 schools within a 5-mile radius.
And now, how far out of London are we?
So Rickmansworth is about 25 minutes by train from Marylebone. I think we're probably about 25 miles from central London right now. It's a classic commuter town, but because of this high proportion of schools, the roads take an absolute bashing. So we're driving now, like we've just passed Waitrose, naturally darling, very middle class town, and like everything seems fine, doesn't it? The roads are kind of okay. Once you get off the main road and you have to drive around what I would call the kind of typical rural lanes which connect communities to schools, you're then really going to see what drivers are having to contend with. And everybody in this local area has got some story or other about a tyre being indiscriminately taken out. Some of these roads, I'm going to show you, have been in this horrific state, not just for months, but for years, without repair. And I'm now going to take you onto this patch of road, which I think you will find relatively eye-watering.
We've started this campaign. Gareth Caulfield, our transport correspondent, and Ollie Corf, one of our data journalists, has put together lots and lots of analysis from across the country about the state of our roads, and it's pretty shocking. We found out that the number of roads being left unrepaired by local authorities has risen to its highest level on record. Local roads in need of maintenance were ignored by councils in 82% of cases last year. So it seems to be a deteriorating situation. There are huge holes on the left, and what is actually happening? Camilla's driving and I'm speaking.
You have to drive so carefully.
And also you have to drift slightly into the middle,
yeah,
don't you, of the road, because what we're seeing here for out of the front of the car is on the left, so on my side of the car are these huge holes which, as you say, Camilla, if you went into them would do serious damage to your car. It's not only the damage that can be done to cars, which is obviously appalling, and to bikes and lorries and vans and everybody who uses our roads, but also you do get a sense of the safety aspect. The road has got white lines down the middle, but it's not a particularly big road. It's sort of between a main road and a country lane. But every time there's a pothole on the left or on the right, Camilla, you're having to drive into the middle to avoid it, which causes oncoming traffic to have to slow down. So it's not only the damage to the vehicles that is the problem, but also the safety issues, which is it must cause lots and lots of accidents as people are trying to avoid the potholes that we can see, every few meters, really, aren't there? There are big holes.
Also people criticise people for buying like so-called Chelsea tractors, although we're out of Chelsea, for buying 4x4s and SUVs. Like, oh, why do mums have to have these big cars on the school run? If you're living in a rural area, it's literally for survival.
Yeah.
And if it snows, these roads never get cleared or anything like that. So you're just left, with your own car. There's another one there. Let's just avoid that. This is like actually one of the better roads. I'm kind of going through a better road to take you onto what I consider to be one of the worst roads in the area.
So what we're going to do about it, I suppose, is the point. And we are today launching the Fix Our Potholes campaign to force local authorities to start fixing the roads and improve conditions for everyone who's a motorist and for cyclists as well, right, and for just general safety.
Brace yourself.
Here we go.
Now, this is the M25. So look at this road now. Look at this.
Yeah, we're just bumping across the road. Feel the car going up and down.
Look at all of this.
Yeah.
Like the whole road is totally destroyed.
Yeah.
But this is a main commuter route to get onto that M25.
Yeah. So we're now on a slightly smaller, but still wide enough for 2 cars to pass, country lane, and to the left and to the right. And what you see, Camilla, is there's been sort of endless patching. They've patched up the road, but actually that's got worse because some of the patching has come up
Someone's
and got
kindly
destroyed.
put that cone there. You see, we have had to go and get cones. So if there's a particularly bad one and you can't see it because it's iced over or it's covered in water, literally citizens just put a cone in the hole.
One of the criticisms of Department for Transport and local authorities is that there has been this whack-a-mole strategy where they will fill a pothole probably quite cheaply, and what they fill it with, the tarmac they fill it with, then starts wearing out itself and creates even more of a problem, rather than actually resurfacing the whole road, which is obviously much, much more expensive.
And actually this isn't too bad, this little patch, because this was repaired, this whole part of this road was repaired, I think, about 6 months ago.
So this shows the advantage, Camilla, of completely resurfacing a road rather than just filling in holes.
Oh,
because
filling in holes
is a
doesn't
massive
do
issue.
anyone any favours. Oh gosh, a fox nearly killed it. There we
My
are.
life,
You know you're
take
in.
my life from my hands here.
You know you're in
this
the
is why I live in
countryside
safe London.
now. So there's one there. Look, there's one there that needs to be avoided. We're doing a little zigzag.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are.
And also, if you live in the big cities, what many, many people outside the big cities complain about is that sort of metropolitan governments of whatever, stripe, forget how much people rely on their cars to get to and from work, to get their kids to school, to do the shopping, and therefore this has not been given the priority that it should be given.
Like, look at this. So this car's coming now. What am I now meant to do?
You've got to stop, haven't you?
Well, I'm not going
There's
over
just holes
that.
on the left, yeah.
So look, she's in an SUV, so she's kind of in a better position than I am.
Yeah, we're in a Mini, everybody. Thoughts and prayers.
So
We're in a very small
she's now
car.
waiting for me to come forward because we're both just conscious we don't want to trash our alloys.
So the government has said that it's going to put £1.6 billion into trying to solve the pothole plague, but that is actually only a very small amount of the possibly £16 billion needed to solve the problem across the whole of the country. It actually points to another issue that we've talked about a lot, Camilla, on the podcast, which is that, as you say, lack of joined up thinking, things just not getting done quickly, and everything, when you feel yourself to be under funding pressure, everything can be pushed to the next year. And so you say, well, okay, we'll just leave the potholes for this year. We'll do it to next year. And that means that we've had this deterioration in our roads, which has been affected by, the cuts to local authority funding, but also just a very inefficient way we do jobs.
And I don't know what impetus the county council, bear in mind Hertfordshire is one of the biggest counties in England, I'm not really sure, whether they would care that much about a road like this, because it's kind of very localised. It's a lane. It's not like, as you say, an A road or even a B road. Maybe they just think, oh well, it's the countryside, so that's unfortunately, we've got priority to repair potholes in main roads, not these little ones. But it kind of undervalues the fact that hundreds, if not thousands, of people use it every day, regardless of its condition.
Just after the election, the National Audit Office produced a report on the state of Britain's roads. And one of the things that really leapt out at you reading that report was there's just a lack of data. We simply don't know how bad our roads are. It said that there were significant gaps in understanding of what the road network, actually looked like. And that there was no real evaluation of all the different schemes. It said there were 12 different schemes by the Department for Transport for fixing roads. And of those schemes, only one had ever been evaluated. And that just shows you the problem we have, as you say, with joined up thinking, because there's all these different, only government could invent 12 ways of trying to fix roads.
Exactly. So that is our little tour of the school run patch, back to where we started. What did you think?
I've been surprised by how bad the road network is. How bad it is, as you say, we're very close to London, we're very close to the M25, the busiest motorway in the United Kingdom.
It's a wealthy area.
It's a wealthy area. Therefore, the local authorities should have good tax revenue. Even more important than the road, than the risk to your car, Camilla, and the risk to everyone's cars and vans and lorries and cyclists as well, is the safety aspect.
Yeah.
The number of times, Camilla, you've had to stop or pull into the left or go into the middle of the road to avoid hazardous potholes on the left-hand side of the car, that has really struck me, because most roads in the UK, or lots of roads in the UK, two cars can't pass comfortably.
Yeah.
And therefore, if there's loads of potholes, they just increase hazard and accident risk.
I think on those roads, most cars can't pass comfortably anyway if the roads were perfect. If they're imperfect, then, we have loads of dings and prangs and people getting scraped by lorries and stuff. That's almost just baked in these days. And then we're going to return, Kamal, to where we both belong, Waitrose car park, to park up to return to
back to
London.
Rickmansworth station, and we're going to go back to the studio and update you all on how you can get involved in this brilliant campaign that we're launching today.
And aren't we also going to be speaking to Mr Pothole himself? And he's a man who is an expert on the country's potholes.
Well, Camilla, we're back safely in the studio after your beautiful driving around the streets of Hertfordshire this morning. And we are joined indeed by Mr Pothole, Mark Morrell, former Mayor of Brackley, which is a very proud accolade for anybody. Mark, as we were driving around, we've been driving for many decades, the three of us. Is this ever going to get any better?
No, it's not. I mean, government don't seem to want to admit or understand the size of the problem. I mean, there's a £14.3 billion backlog in carriageway works in England and Wales. Interestingly, talking about the economy, there's a report that says that badly maintained roads are costing the economy £14.4 billion a year. So I can't understand why those that are supposed to know more than us general public, why they can't invest in resurfacing our roads, which is the real answer to the pothole problem. An extra £3 billion a year index linked in 10 years' time, you could halve that £14 billion a year. That's economics in my understanding.
I mean, Mark, is it the kind of uniqueness of the British Isles and the fact that, we've got A, B, C and other roads? Some of the roads we drove down this morning are one-lane roads. You've got to pull in to the side. That's half the problem. You've got to pull in to let another car pass, but invariably where you pull in is full of potholes and it can really damage your car and your tyres. But which countries are doing it well? Which countries in the world have perfect roads, and how on earth are they doing it?
Oh, well, the Middle East, places like Dubai, and they come out sort of top. We're rated about 35th in the world. And, look at Scandinavia, the extremes in weathers that Scandinavia get than compared to us. It's a case where we haven't invested in our roads for decades. You need to resurface them, because all these potholes are a sign of failure. The top wearing surface lasts about 20 years. Most of ours are now 70 years old. So, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out why you need to actually spend money resurfacing our roads. And they're all a sign of failures. I have got no faith in government or authorities doing anything about it.
Mark, I was in France. I drove down to Spain this year for my summer holidays. In France, it's like almost like driving on marble. Every single road, absolutely smooth, beautifully surfaced. But I'm supposing, Mark, do we need much, much higher levels of taxes to make our roads as nice as the French get them? Or is it actually just incompetence and lack of ability to get things done?
Well, I think if you look at France, for example, obviously the motorways are toll roads, so they generate revenue. But what they do in the local areas is that each local area has a local inspector to ensure that even if they do engage contractors or their direct people, carry out the work to a good standard. So that would be quite novel, rather than service providers who just throw some tarmac in a hole. In terms of funding, road users paying over £50 billion a year through all forms of taxation, whether that be vehicle excise duty, fuel duty, VAT on repairs and things. So there is money available. It's just the government choose to spend it on things that maybe aren't essential to the British people. Look at good old Ed Miliband, £22 billion for carbon capture. Imagine what that could do for our roads.
Very good point, Mark. Look, continue filling in. How many potholes do you reckon you have managed to get filled in since you started campaigning on this issue?
Over 10,000.
Good man. And then what was the biggest pothole you ever had to fill in?
42-foot long.
What?
Yeah, up in Lincolnshire. It's the worst pothole that I've seen, and in fact, it was even worse because it was an area where there were some cottages and there was no footpath, so the people had to try and navigate that to get out of their sort of garden gate, as it were. I've had over £5 million of resurfacing work carried out, and I've issued legal notices on authorities to get works carried out. And I've tried to be a pain in the backside. But it's getting to the stage now where I can't keep saying the same things. The answers are there. There's a Transport Select Committee inquiry that was published in 2019. The current future roads minister, Lillian Greenwood MP, was the chair. So the answers are in there in terms of how we can improve things. Government just need to implement things. But as I said, I've got little faith in them doing anything about it. And, how long can I keep going on?
Mark, Mr Pothole, the Telegraph at least is behind you.
We are. You keep being a pain in people's backside, Mark, because you're the only hope we have.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Daily Tea today.